World War Z, Chapter 3. Read by Narayanan. Meteora, Greece. The monasteries are built into the steep, inaccessible rocks. Some buildings sitting perched atop high, almost vertical columns. While originally an attractive refuge from the Ottoman Turks, it later proved to be just as secure from the living dead. Post-war staircases, mostly metal or wood, and all easily retractable, cater to the growing influx of both pilgrims and tourists. Meteora has become a popular destination for both groups in recent years. Some seek wisdom and spiritual enlightenment. Some simply in search of peace. Stanley MacDonald is one of the latter, a veteran of almost every campaign across the expanse of his native Canada. He first encountered the living dead during a different war, when the 3rd Battalion of Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry was involved in drug interdiction operations in Kyrgyzstan. Please, don't confuse us with the American Alpha teams. This was long before their deployment, before the panic, before the Israeli self-quarantine. This was even before the first major outbreak in Cape Town. This was just at the beginning of the spread, before anybody knew anything about anything or what was coming. Our mission was strictly conventional: opium and hash, the primary export crop of terrorists around the world. That's all we ever encountered in this rocky wasteland. Traders and thugs, locally hired muscle. That's all we expected. That's all we were ready for. The cave entrance, well, that was easy to find. We tracked it back from the blood trail leading to the caravan. Right away, we knew something was wrong. There were no bodies. Rival tribes always left their victims laid out and mutilated as warnings to others. There was plenty of blood and bits of brown rotting flesh, but the only corpses we found were the pack mules. And they'd been brought down, not shot, by what looked to be wild animals. Their bellies were torn out and large bite wounds covered their flesh. We guessed it had to have been wild dogs. Packs of those damn things roamed the valleys, big, nasty, just like Arctic wolves. What was even more puzzling was the cargo, still in its saddlebags, just scattered about the bodies. Now, even if it wasn't a territorial hit, even if it was a religious or tribal revenge killing, no one just abandoned 50 kilos of prime, raw, bad brown. Or perfectly good assault rifles, expensive personal trophies like watches, mini-disc players, GPS locators, you name it. The blood trail led up the mountain path from the massacre at the Wadi. A lot of blood. Oh man, anybody who lost that much blood probably wasn't going to be getting up again. Somehow he did. He hadn't been treated. There were no other track marks. From what we could tell, this man had run, bled, fallen face down. We could still see his bloody face mark imprinted in the sand. Somehow, without suffocating, without bleeding to death, he just laid there for some time and then gotten up and started walking. These new tracks, very different from the old. They were slower, closer together. His right foot seemed to be dragging. Clearly, he'd lost a shoe, an old worn-out Nike high top. The drag marks were sprinkled with fluid. Not blood, not human, but droplets of hard, black, crusted ooze that none of us recognized. We followed these and the drag marks into the entrance of the cave. There was no open fire, no reception of any kind. We found the tunnel entrance unguarded and wide open. Immediately, we began to see bodies. Men killed by their own booby traps. They looked like they'd been running to get out. Beyond them, in the first chamber, we saw our first evidence of a one-sided firefight. One-sided because only wall of the cavern was pockmarked by small arms fire. Opposite that wall were the shooters. They'd been torn apart, their limbs, their bones, shredded, gnawed. Still some clutching their weapons, one of those severed hands with an old Makarov still in the grip. The hand was missing a finger. I found that across the room, along with the body of another unarmed man who had been hit with over 100 times. It looks like several rounds had taken off the top of his head. The finger still stuck between his teeth. Every chamber told a similar story. We found smashed barricades, discarded weapons. We found more bodies, or pieces of them. Only the intact ones died from headshots. We found meat, chewed, pulped up flesh bulging from their throats and stomachs. You could see the blood trails, the footprints, the shell casings, and the pockmarks. The entire battle had originated from the infirmary. We discovered several cots, all of them bloody. At the end of the room, we found a headless, I'm guessing, doctor lying on the floor next to a cot with soiled sheets and clothes and an old, left-footed, worn-out Nike high top. That last tunnel that we checked it had been collapsed from the use of a booby-trap demolition charge or something. A hand had been sticking out of the limestone, and it was still moving. I reacted from the gut, leaned forward, grabbed the hand, felt that grip, like steel, almost crushed my fingers, pulled back. I tried to get away. It wouldn't let me go. I pulled harder and dug my feet in. First, the arm came free, then the head, then the torn face, eyes wide, gray lips. Then the other hand, grabbing my arm, squeezing. Then came the shoulders. That's when I fell back. The thing's top half coming with me. The waist, from the waist down, man, this guy was still jammed under those rocks, still connected to the upper torso by a line of entrails. It was still moving, clawing at me, trying to pull my goddamn arm into its mouth. That's when I reached for my weapon. The burst was angled upwards, connecting just under and behind the chin and spraying its brains across the ceiling above us. I'd been the only one who was in the tunnel when it happened. Was the only witness. Exposure to unknown chemical agents. That's what they told me back in Edmonton. Or that's what the adverse reaction to our own prophylactic medication. They threw in a healthy dose of PTSD for good measure. I just needed rest. Rest and long-term evaluation. Fucking evaluation. That's what happens when it's your own side, man. It's only interrogation when it's the enemy. They teach you how to resist the enemy, how to protect your mind and your spirit. They don't teach you how to resist your own people, especially people who think they're trying to help you and see the truth. It didn't break me. I broke myself. I wanted to believe them. I wanted them to help me. I was a good soldier, well-trained, experienced. I knew what I could do to my fellow human beings and what they could do to me. I thought I was ready for anything. Who in his right mind could have been ready for this?